All right, so Bitcoin, huh? It's been kind of blowing up lately, right?
Yeah.
Breaking $85,000 a coin.
Yeah, it's been wild.
Some people are saying this is just the beginning.
It's crazy.
I mean, is it? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah.
We've got a bunch of stuff here, videos, articles. It's like our Bitcoin starter pack.
Yeah.
Trying to really get into it because it feels like everyone's talking about Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
but not that many people are explaining it very well.
Right. Yeah, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, for sure. So let's start with the basics. What is Bitcoin?
Well, at its simplest, it's a cryptocurrency, which is basically digital money. But the key difference is it operates completely independently of any, central authority.
Oh, wow. Okay. So no Federal Reserve, no Bank of England, no one controlling it. That's a big deal.
It is a pretty radical concept.
Yeah, how does it even work?
Well, Bitcoin relies on something called a blockchain.
Okay.
You can think of it like a giant public ledger, kind of like a global spreadsheet
Okay.
that keeps track of every single Bitcoin transaction ever made.
Every single one.
Wow. Yeah, and this ledger is constantly being updated and verified
Wow.
by a huge network of computers all over the world.
So it's like a digital history book of
Yeah.
every Bitcoin transaction
Yeah.
that anyone can just see.
Pretty much. And that's one of the things that makes it so secure,
Okay.
because every computer that's part of the Bitcoin network
Yeah.
keeps a copy of this blockchain. So to change it,
Yeah.
to tamper with it, you would have to hack into thousands of computers
Oh, wow.
simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's practically impossible. And that decentralized nature is really at the heart of what makes Bitcoin unique and potentially so revolutionary.
Got it. So it's super secure. But I'm still a little stuck on the value part.
Right.
How can digital money have any real value
Right.
if it's not backed by gold or a government saying it's legal tender?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it gets to the heart of what makes Bitcoin so interesting. Because unlike traditional currencies, Bitcoin's value isn't determined by some central authority. It's determined by several factors, much like anything else that people consider valuable.
So what makes it so valuable that people are willing to spend upwards of $85,000
Yeah.
for one Bitcoin, especially with this recent surge?
Well, one of the primary factors is scarcity.
Okay.
So Bitcoin was designed with a limited supply,
Hmm.
capped at 21 million coins.
Okay.
There will never be more Bitcoin created than that.
So there's a finite amount.
Exactly. Just like with gold, as demand grows, the price naturally goes up.
So that's one of the reasons people compare it to digital gold.
Exactly. And unlike traditional currencies, which governments can just print endlessly, leading to inflation, Bitcoin's supply is fixed. So that gives it some inherent value and protection against manipulation.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
How does the whole blockchain thing prevent someone from just copying Bitcoins
Right.
and making more? I mean, it's digital.
Yeah. So that's where the brilliance of the blockchain really comes in. It solves what's called the double spend problem.
Okay.
So imagine if you copy a digital music file. You have two. With traditional digital files, duplication is easy. But Bitcoin prevents this
Okay.
by cryptographically linking each transaction to the previous one on the blockchain. It's like a chain of digital signatures,
Okay.
each one verifying the one before it, making it basically impossible to duplicate or counterfeit a Bitcoin.
So every transaction is like a link in this unbreakable chain,
Yeah,
and everyone on the network has a copy of the chain.
that's right. Pretty clever, huh?
Yeah, it is. It is. And this brings us to another reason why Bitcoin is valuable.
Uh-huh.
This decentralization.
Exactly.
It's not governed by a single entity.
Right.
So no one can just manipulate its supply or censor transactions.
Right.
Okay, so we've got scarcity,
Yeah.
decentralization,
Uh-huh.
incredibly secure blockchain technology.
Mhm.
What else makes it valuable?
Well, there's the fact that it offers access to financial services to anyone with an internet connection. It doesn't matter where you are or whether you have access to traditional banking.
I see.
It's incredibly inclusive and empowering.
That could be huge for people in countries that don't have good access to banks.
Absolutely. And then also you have the fact that the blockchain is immutable. So transactions are permanent and transparent.
Hmm.
This makes Bitcoin really resistant to fraud and censorship.
Makes sense.
And this appeals to individuals and businesses looking for secure ways to transact.
So we got scarcity, decentralization, security, and accessibility.
Yeah.
What else is pushing this Bitcoin rocket? I mean, it's gone past $85,000 recently.
Yeah. It's been amazing.
It's got to be something else going on, right?
Well, its growing presence on major exchanges is definitely a factor.
Okay.
As it becomes more accessible and liquid, it's easier to buy and sell.
Right.
And that further fuels demand. More and more people are seeing it as a legitimate asset class.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, and it's interesting how the media always focuses on the price swings.
Yeah, it's true. It's all over the headlines. Bitcoin's up, Bitcoin's down.
Exactly.
Kind of distracting.
Right.
So let's talk about what's beyond the price. What else is driving Bitcoin's value?
Well, think about this. The cost of actually producing a Bitcoin is another factor.
Okay.
Because mining, the process of creating new Bitcoins, requires a ton of computing power,
Yeah.
which means real costs, electricity hardware.
Right. We talked about mining earlier. It's like this global competition
Exactly.
to solve these crazy math problems. And whoever wins gets to add a new block of transactions to the blockchain.
Right.
And they get rewarded with Bitcoin.
Exactly. And that process, besides being super energy intensive, is also designed to get harder over time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of built in.
Huh.
So that ensures a slow and steady release of new Bitcoins into circulation. So the more people try to mine, the harder it gets.
Oh, wow.
And the more valuable each Bitcoin becomes.
That's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
In a way,
Yeah.
yeah. And then there's competition and innovation.
Okay.
Bitcoin's like the first one in a rapidly growing field.
Uh-huh.
So it's attracting investment, driving innovation, paving the way for other cryptocurrencies and all these blockchain applications. This whole ecosystem is adding to its overall value.
It's crazy how this one concept has spawned this whole industry.
Right.
And it's changing the way we think about money and technology.
It really is. But of course, like any new technology, there are challenges and things to consider.
Right. It's not all perfect. I mean, I've heard people talk about Bitcoin's volatility.
Mm-hmm.
What's the deal with these crazy price swings?
Well, Bitcoin's price is influenced by market sentiment and speculation, which can be influenced by a ton of different things. You've got news events, regulatory announcements, tech advancements, social media trends can all play a role.
Wow. So even rumors and tweets can affect the price.
Absolutely. Plus, it's a relatively small market
Okay.
compared to traditional assets. So even small amounts of buying or selling can cause big price movements.
So if I'm thinking about investing,
Yeah.
I got to be ready for a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, pretty much. It's important to be cautious. Bitcoin carries inherent risks. It's not for everyone. The price can be really volatile. So do your research, understand the technology, and only invest what you can afford to lose.
Okay. Good advice. What other challenges should we be aware of?
Scalability is a big one. The Bitcoin network can only process a limited number of transactions per second. This can lead to delays and higher fees, especially during times of high demand.
Right. I've read about that. Some people say it's a major roadblock for wider adoption.
It is. It's a hot topic in the Bitcoin community.
I bet.
There are solutions being worked on, like the Lightning Network, which is designed to make transactions faster and cheaper, but it's a work in progress.
Okay, so volatility and scalability.
Right.
What else?
Regulatory uncertainty is another one,
Uh-huh.
because the legal status of Bitcoin is still different from country to country.
Right.
So, new regulations, government policies create uncertainty for investors and businesses.
Yeah, governments are still trying to figure out how to deal with this whole new form of currency. It's kind of a Wild West out there.
You could say that. It's important to keep up with the regulations in your area.
So it's not just about understanding the code, but the laws around it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, what about all the environmental stuff I've heard about?
Uh-huh.
Is Bitcoin really bad for the environment?
The energy consumption associated with mining is a valid concern,
Right.
and there's a lot of debate about whether it's sustainable.
I've seen reports claiming Bitcoin uses more energy than entire countries.
Yeah.
It seems crazy that something digital could take that much power.
Well, remember that mining process we discussed?
Yeah.
The amount of computing power needed to solve those complex math problems,
Right.
to secure the network, it uses a lot of electricity.
It's like a giant decentralized supercomputer that's always running.
That's a good way to put it. Some people argue that renewable energy can help, but others think we need different methods entirely, like proof of stake, which doesn't need all that energy-intensive mining.
So there are potential solutions, but it's complicated. No easy answers.
Definitely Bitcoin has its challenges, but also its potential.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So what does all this mean for someone like me who's just getting into Bitcoin?
Well, it means doing your homework. Understanding both the potential upsides and the risks. Bitcoin isn't a get-rich-quick scheme, it's a long-term thing. And you've got to be skeptical.
So don't just jump in because the price is going up.
Right, exactly. Educate yourself, assess the risks, make informed decisions.
Got it. What about you?
Our deep dive here is just the beginning. There's so much information out there about Bitcoin, and it's changing all the time. It's a really fascinating journey.
Well, I'm definitely intrigued. We've talked about the basics and the potential problems.
Mm-hmm.
So now I want to know how Bitcoin's actually being used out there in the real world.
Okay.
Is it just for buying and holding, or are there practical things you can do with it?
That's a great question, and that's where things get really interesting because Bitcoin isn't just a speculative asset. It's being used for real-world transactions and applications in some really innovative ways.
Okay, so tell me, how is Bitcoin actually making a difference out there?
One area where it's really taking off is with international remittances.
Okay.
People working abroad, sending money back home to their family.
Right. They can use Bitcoin to avoid those crazy fees and long wait times you get with traditional services.
Yeah, sending money across borders can be a nightmare.
It can be a real pain.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin is like a faster, cheaper alternative.
Makes sense. And
Yeah.
because it's decentralized, it doesn't need banks.
Right. Exactly. So it's great for people who might not even have a bank account. It's really empowering, giving them more control over their money.
Yeah, that's huge. Especially for people in countries with limited banking options. What about other uses?
We're seeing more and more online businesses accepting Bitcoin as payment.
Really?
It's becoming more mainstream all the time. You've got big companies and small businesses embracing it.
So I could actually buy stuff online with Bitcoin.
You got it.
Yeah.
And it has some advantages for both the buyer and the seller.
Like what?
Transactions are usually faster and more secure, and the processing fees are lower than traditional methods.
Interesting. What about these micropayments I keep hearing about?
Oh, yeah.
What are those exactly?
Think of them as super tiny transactions.
Like fractions of a cent.
Wow.
This opens up all sorts of possibilities online.
Like what?
Well, for example, you could use them to pay for individual articles online, or tip your favorite creators,
Oh, I see.
or even reward users for their activity online.
So it's like a digital tip jar.
Exactly.
Better.
Bitcoin makes these tiny transactions possible, which could totally revolutionize how we create and consume content online. It allows for new business models, new ways to make money from digital stuff.
Could even change the whole online advertising landscape.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And this is where things get really interesting because Bitcoin isn't just a currency. It's a platform for building these decentralized applications.
Whoa, wait, decentralized application.
Yeah, dApps.
Okay, I'm lost.
Okay, so think about this. Decentralized social media platforms where users control their own data,
Okay.
or prediction markets that use the wisdom of the crowd, or even supply chain systems that track products from start to finish with total transparency.
That's pretty mind-blowing. So Bitcoin's more than just money. It's like a whole new way of thinking about technology.
You got it. It's about shifting power away from these big institutions, giving more control, transparency, and security to individuals.
Wow.
It's about reimagining how we interact and do business online.
I'm starting to get the big picture here. It's not just about the price of Bitcoin. It's about the potential it unlocks.
Exactly.
Like we're at the beginning of a new internet era. If Bitcoin is the internet of money, what else could these decentralized technologies change?
That's the big question. And we're just starting to explore the possibilities. But one thing's for sure, Bitcoin has started a revolution in finance. And the effects are going to be huge.
This deep dive has been incredible. It feels like I've just scratched the surface. But I'm definitely hooked.
That's what's so great about it, Bitcoin and the whole world of crypto. It's constantly evolving. It's a journey of learning and discovery.
To all our listeners out there, if you're interested in what we've talked about today, keep exploring this amazing world of Bitcoin and crypto. This is just the beginning.
And remember, whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, approach it with a critical mind. Do your research. Be ready for the ride.
Who knows what the future holds. But it's definitely an exciting time to be part of this revolution.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon to explore more fascinating topics.